As entrepreneurs, we all have a reason why we chose to leave our 9 to 5 for an 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. I'm here to capture those stories of why we all hustle and grind for our companies. David, or Coach Kitch, is the founder of Edge Leadership Academy. He is a former Division I coach turned entrepreneur and a PhD candidate with a master's degree in sports psychology. Outside the classroom, he has a decade of experience building leaders, culture, and mindset at the highest levels of sports and business. He has authored 3 books, including an international bestseller. As an award-winning speaker, consultant, and coach, Coach Kitch is trusted by 100-plus CEOs, coaches, and high performers to help them lead and win in business, athletics, and life. So, David, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. I really appreciate you being here, and I love what you're going to bring as far as with getting a degree in sports psychology, which I think mixes 2 really interesting things, the psychology part and also the mind of an athlete, which is, I think, at least in my experience, very similar to what an entrepreneur has to do. We are essentially athletes in our own little game. So I'm really excited to have you on here today, man.
Correct, man. Yeah, I'm fired up to do this. It's Friday. I don't know when this will get released, but it's Friday for me, man. So I'm a big Finish Friday guy. So you're gonna have to match the energy. We're gonna bring the juice and have some fun.
Oh, challenge accepted, man. Let's do this. So what I'd like you to do, that people have heard your bio, but I always like to hear the entrepreneur themselves say it because we all have this passion for what we do. High level, what do you do?
Man, on a very simplistic basis, we arm people with the skills that it takes to lead and win in business, in athletics, and life. That's what we do, right? And how do we do that? By simplifying things into frameworks and repeatable processes. We try and simplify the art of high performance because it's an art, right? And so we simplify it into things that people can repeat. So our vision is just to be the driving force behind people's success. We want people to be able to be in a situation where they can learn, grow, create environments for themselves to continue to get better. That's what we do, man.
And how do you do that? Is like a framework, or is there some other, like, what's the secret sauce behind being able to help people to get that high achievement?
Yeah, specifically for us, we start with our 5 C's. So we look at things and we say, okay, every great leader has 5 things in common, right? And this is from the psychology research. This isn't me making this up. The entrepreneurial god smiled down on me and said all these things happen to start with C, so it became the 5 C's. But it's not me making it up. So we start in the middle with character, right? So we teach people what it means to have character, how to define their own vision, mission, and values, and then all of the subsets and all the sub tools that go with that. Everything from habits, mindset, discipline, into having audit systems for your friends and social interactions and all these things. So every C really gets unpacked into a bunch of different sub tools, and not everybody will need every tool. Some people are already proficient in certain things. So we look at it as we sit down, we look at your toolbox, and then we start to add the tools that you don't have. And we make sure that your toolbox is complete. So again, it goes back to those 5 C's. So we start with character. From there, we go to your ability to be consistent. And I'd say consistency either solves or creates 90% of your problems in life, depending on what you're consistent in. And so we look at all the areas of your life and figure out where are we being consistent and where are we being inconsistent and what are we being consistent in. Then from there, we start to learn how to commit to things, right? So as high achievers, we tend to get this thing called shiny object syndrome, where we start to look to our left and we start to look to our right, and we become a dog in a dog park, and it becomes very, very hard to be where your feet are at. And when you're trying to lead a company, or you're trying to lead your family, or you're trying to lead your community, people see that. And so we have to teach you how to commit to the people, the vision, and the culture that you're a part of right now, while not losing that edge and that visionary piece that makes you special. Right. So how do we balance that? So that's what we teach, is that commitment piece. Right. Then from there, it's creativity. So everybody says about leaders, like, creativity and leadership are synonymous in American culture, and they're synonymous really around the world. If you talk about a Super Bowl winning quarterback, for example, nobody says he managed them to a Super Bowl win. Right. We all say he led them. If you talk about a CEO who brought a company back from bankruptcy, nobody says he managed them through crisis. He led them, or she led them, right? So creativity and leadership go hand in hand. So we have to teach, and we help teach leaders how to be creative. And we do that through a couple different frameworks. We don't have to dive too deep into it. But essentially just teaching them how to unlock that piece of their brain and how to actually start to use that and get away from some of the analytical side and be able to be creative. And then we also teach that from a creative side, how to leverage the people on your team, because that's creativity. Right. So it's creative problem solving using all of the tools and the assets that are at your disposal. right? And then lastly is communication, which is the C that everybody's waiting for. That's why I put it last, because it's kind of like it creates that edge. Everyone's like, when's he going to say it? When's he going to say it? There it is. It's communication, right? So it's the one that everybody knew was coming, but we dive deep into communication. We dive deep into all aspects of it, from body language to tonality, to your ability to build trust beforehand. All of those things are part of it. So our framework is the 5 C's. We have a billion different ways that we, kind of introduce that, but it all comes back to, on a base level, that curriculum and that framework.
And I think, as somebody who's been in the learning and development industry for almost 20 years at this point, I've seen a lot of different ways of we didn't necessarily work in entrepreneurship, but we did work in leadership, and that was a part of what it is. That's what, L&D, or, so it's part of what we do as
Right.
part of our job. But I think that was probably the most succinct way of defining what a good leader is that I've heard, and the most thorough. You've hit everything, and especially from an entrepreneurial lens point, consistency is a problem. Shiny object is a problem. I'm a huge advocate for this because I want people to hear it. Every entrepreneur I know is ADHD. There's some sort of a
Correct.
learning disability.
Yep.
And what it is that's our superpower, but we also have
Mhm.
to understand how to balance it. So
Mhm.
shiny object syndrome is absolutely a thing. But what we're really good at is being able to go out and create stuff, push the button and see what happens, go out and
Yes.
do this, that impulse, just impulsively doing something, learning how to balance it out. But anyway, I do love that. That's probably the best way I've ever heard it put. Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Hitting all the check marks.
Yeah.
So how did you get into this? Like, what was
Man.
the story? What was the series of events behind getting into this?
I say now, and I've recently coined this phrase and recently been holding on to this, that this business and what I'm doing now is my love letter to the world. It's
Mhm.
my way of giving back to all the and paying homage to all the experiences that I've had in my life. So, without giving you a 30-minute dissertation on it, I was born in a single parent household. Never met my biological father. I was the man of the house at 10 years old, right? So I never really had, from a traditional standpoint, that male leader in my life,
Mm.
right? And so, but what I did have was a great female leader in my mother. So I was taught early to learn to lead with love. Like, that's what she taught me. That's what she represented every single day. So I say that to say I then went through my life with a little bit different lens than other people on what leadership meant. And I started to have these different examples come in from male coaches, from other role models that I got around, other mentors, etc. And then when I got into the coaching world, I really got interested in the psychology piece behind it. What actually makes leadership work? What actually makes things tick? So I started to build these curriculums and teach that stuff. And then this was the light bulb moment. I had a young man come in my office. I was coaching at the Division I level of men's basketball. This young man is now making a lot of money playing his game.
Good.
But he came in my office and he said, "Coach, I've been the best player on every team I've ever been on, and everybody's always telling me to lead. Nobody ever taught me how."
Mm.
And I'm one of those people that, if I truly believe, and this is part of being around 18 to 22-year-olds for a long time, I truly believe if one person has a question, it's indicative of a larger population, right?
Yeah.
So to me, I was like, okay, if this young man is struggling with this, who else is, right? And so that was the thing. And again, to the single parent piece, I was raised in a household where you don't complain about a problem unless you have a solution. So
Mm.
to me, that became a challenge of, all right, you got to go be the solution now. So now
Mhm.
you got to go teach this stuff, and you got to figure out how to build this. And so, long story short, man, I took everything that I had learned over the past couple of years, brought all those notebooks together, built this beautiful curriculum, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna go take on the entrepreneurial world, and I'm gonna go crush it. And I got offered a contract extension at the end of the summer, and it was like a movie moment. I slid the contract back and said, I'm out. And that night I went home and Googled, how do you start an LLC? And that's how Edge Leadership Academy was built.
I love that. It's sort of, I'm just doing it. And
Yeah, I'm just
that's
gonna
what I
do it.
love. That's what I love about entrepreneurs is we'll just go out there and do it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I didn't tell anybody. I
Yeah.
just did it. And then that night, like after I started filling out my LLC paperwork, I called my family and I called my friends and I was like, "Hey, just so you guys know, I'm unemployed. I quit my job. I put in the paperwork to empty my 401k, and I'm going to invest in myself and start a business. Oh, by the way, it's a speaking business. That's predicated on human contact, and it is the height of COVID. So yeah, we're gonna figure it out. It'll be fine."
We'll make it work. Good luck
And
with
it
that.
was, and it is.
Yeah. I
Here we
love
are,
it.
4 years later, happy you can be.
Yeah. Yeah. And that is something that entrepreneurship really taught me is that, I came from a background where my mom's love language was control. So just
Mhm.
not really, able to, I had a lot of issues that I had to kind of figure out. But one of the things I've learned is that I'm going to figure it out no matter how
Yeah.
bad things go, no matter what happens to me. Except I had a joke with a guest the other day, going, except maybe like nuclear holocaust or like
Right.
major,
Right.
major weather event, then we're all screwed. But there's nothing we can do about that. But most things that happen to me, almost all, I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
And I think same thing you did. It's like, I'm just going to figure this out. We can go
We'll figure
forward
it out.
with a level of faith in ourselves that is by far more than what most people do. And I think that's something
Correct.
we bring to the world.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's a difference between um being delusional and
Mhm.
having faith in yourself, right?
Mhm.
And I think the difference is the amount of work that you're willing to put in, right? So when you or I or any entrepreneur really, when you say, "Hey, I'm going to go build this thing," you understand in your head, you don't say it out loud, but you understand it on a deep level. Hey, this is going to be 10 times harder than I think it's going to be, but
Mhm.
that's okay. I'm going to grow and I'm going to figure it out along the way. And then what you realize as you get further into it is that so much of success is just a war of attrition.
Mhm.
It's just don't sink the boat today. Don't sink completely today, right? Just how can I wake up tomorrow and fight again? How can I wake up tomorrow and fight again? And I'd be lying if I didn't say there, we all have them, sleepless nights,
Yeah.
long days. Like we all have days where we look in the mirror and we're like, what are we doing?
Mhm.
Like, why am I doing this to myself? And then you realize because I took a set of glasses off that the world hands us at a young age, and I now see the world that I can't ever put those glasses back on. I'll
Mhm.
never be the same. I can't do it. And so, what does that mean? It means that I have to increase my capacity to sit in discomfort. It
Mhm.
means that I have to really leverage the fact that I have a higher pain tolerance than other people. I have to
Mhm.
leverage the fact that I'm better at stress management than other people. And I have to become an expert at those things, right? That's really what it comes down to.
I have a joke with a friend of mine that says, as entrepreneurs, our base level stress, our base stress level is most people's panic.
Correct. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
100%. You're functioning in a world where you're betting on yourself and putting all the chips into the middle of the table every single hand.
Yeah.
Every single hand, every single day. And if you don't do it, nobody is coming to save you.
Mhm.
And that in today's society is very rare, right? We
Mhm.
all want somebody to come save us. And I think entrepreneurs understand that, hey, if I'm going to fail, I'd rather fail because of me. I don't
Mhm.
want to fail because of something else, right? Like I understand that I'm willing to take that responsibility. And I talked to my team about it. We went through a cash flow problem early in the business. Like we were a startup, we were figuring it out. And we're talking through it. And one of my guys on my team was like, "Hey man, I'm worried about you." And I was like, "I don't want you to worry about me. I know what I signed up for. I
Mhm.
don't want you to feel pressure. I want you to feel urgency. And I
Mhm.
don't ever want that urgency to leave. I want that urgency, how you feel right now. I want that urgency to be there forever. That's how we build something special, right?
Mhm.
But I don't want you to feel the pressure. The pressure is for me. That's me. This is my name. I signed up for this. I'm good. If I'm not feeling pressure, you shouldn't feel pressure, but you should feel urgency. And I
Mhm.
think that's an important distinction that entrepreneurs have to make.
Mhm. Absolutely. And no, and I that 100% resonate with that. Like, where there are some times where it's just like you need to keep going, you need to get that next thing. Yeah. Yeah. But
Yeah.
that urgency, even during those days when there are some days I show up at 100%. There's some days when you're getting 20%. Just
Mhm.
don't sink the ship.
Yeah.
Don't sink
Don't sink the
the
ship.
ship.
Don't sink the ship.
Give up. The only way you can fail is quitting.
That's it.
But you're not going to have 100% days every single day. However, it's also, just keep going. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah,
Definitely.
and I have a friend who I love him to death, and he's an entrepreneur as well.
Uh-huh.
And he said this to me early on in my career. He said, "Dude, you just got to realize that entrepreneurship is about moving dirt. There's there's a big pile of dirt, and your job is to move it from point A to point B. And some days you wake up and you show up to the job site to move that dirt, and they hand you the keys to a bulldozer, and you get to really move dirt. And then other days you show up and they hand you a seafood spoon, and you
Mhm.
got to figure it out. But
Yeah,
either way, the dirt has to get moved."
I love.
And I'm like, you know what? That's so true, man. So you got to learn to give yourself grace, right? Because as entrepreneurs, we always look at those 100% days where we're firing on all cylinders. The creativity is flowing, the calls are coming in, things are going well, and you're like, "Oh, this is every day. This should be every day." And then you start to compare every day to that, and you
Mhm.
can't. That's an outlier. Those days are outliers. Right now, should we have them, somewhat often? Yeah, probably, if it's something you're passionate about, right?
Yeah.
But it's not going to be every single day. And so you got to learn to give yourself grace and say, how do I win on the days when I don't have that?
Yeah.
Like that's what separates you, is how do I still get things done? How do I still win on days when I'm not at 100%? Like
Yeah.
how do I turn my 50% days into somebody else's 75% days to where
Mhm.
I'm still beating people on those days?
Yeah. And I think we are, we're definitely, even on our 20% days, we're doing better than folks that are not doing this at all. And I
Absolutely.
think understanding that is something that's really important, is just kind of keeping some perspective that we are doing
Mhm.
something most people won't do. I have a good friend of mine that's been founding companies for 30 some odd years, and a couple of big companies he's exited from. And he says that maybe I think his number is like 1 to 4% of people actually have what's necessary to be an entrepreneur.
Correct.
And so understanding that you are in the 1%,
Mhm.
or let's
Mhm.
say 4%, to be generous about
Yeah.
it. You're in the 4% of people that are doing this, and that's a very
Right.
small audience to be a part of.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
and
So
and learn to celebrate that stuff, man. Like learn to celebrate. It was, again, something I had to work on. Like I'm a very head down, eyes forward person. I don't celebrate certain milestones, right? And I just, to me, it's like I never needed a pat on the butt to tell me how good I am. I needed somebody to tell me what I'm doing wrong so I can continue to get better.
mhm.
And so my business partner now is somebody that really adds that perspective for me. And he helps me, reminds me, like, hey, let's celebrate this. Like, hey, you did, like, we did this. Our, we doubled, or we did this, or whatever the situation is. It's
Mhm.
just, hey, let's take a second and just recognize it, and then
Mhm.
we can move on, right? Because I'm very much like done next. So I
Mhm.
think you got to kind of have that in your business as well. And it doesn't have to be somebody directly in your business. It could be your spouse, it could be your friend, it could be whoever. I think for entrepreneurs, it's important to have somebody that pulls our feet back on the ground and makes us pick our head up for a second.
Mhm. So, actually, you touched on something really interesting, and I think this is something I've seen a lot of people struggle with, and that's business partnerships.
Mhm.
I heard one of my clients say one day, it's like, being in a partnership is like being in a marriage, and
Yeah.
you should
Oh
probably
yeah.
treat it the same way, you know.
Oh yeah.
And a lot of people, and I've seen a lot of people have failed partnerships where it's,
Mhm.
it looked good on paper, but there was some other issue. And as we know as entrepreneurs, if you have any flaw, any personality flaw coming into this, it's going to be exacerbated, and you're going to have to deal with it, which can cause some bad partnerships. How did you
Mhm.
find your business partner? Like, what was the series of events that happened that had you, come across this person? It's like, I want to partner with you. I want to go create cool stuff with you.
Yeah, I wasn't looking. I was not looking for a business partner. So my business partner is, his name's Josh East. He's one of my best friends in the world. We actually played high school football together.
Nice.
But we hadn't seen each other in a really long time. And he came out to Vegas for his bachelor party. I was living in Vegas at the time. When I was coaching, that was the last time I saw him. So then flash forward 5 years, I started the business, and we happened to run into each other, and we get dinner, and I'm telling him what I'm doing. I say, hey, yeah, here's what I'm up to now. Blah blah blah. He was in corporate sales, and he was a national sales manager for a large telecom company. And we get to talking, and he's like, man, I really like that idea. Like, I really like that concept, this, that, and the other. And we're kind of going through it. And then we left dinner, and he called me that night, and he's like, hey, I want to help you. And I was like, I'm not really looking to sell any part of the company. I'm not looking for any cash investments. Like, I appreciate it, but I'm good. And he's like, no, you don't understand. He's like, I have a son, I have a family. Like, I want to help you build a legacy. Like, that's what I want to do. Like, we need to go and do this thing, and we need to do it at a really high level. And I was like, oh, okay. So then then a series of conversations happened, and eventually, um, we decided we were going to be partners. But not only is he my business partner in my main core business, which is Edge Leadership Academy, he's also my business partner in all my other endeavors. So we ride together. We joke about, we said it's a bad boys thing, right? Like, we ride together, we die together. Like, everything we do together. We sign our names on it. Our families are like family, and his sons are like my kids, and his wife is phenomenal, and she's a part of the team, and it's like, it just works, right? But it only works because he knows that he has the green light to say to me the thing that I don't want people to say to me.
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah.
that's the only reason that it works, and it's not the only reason. He brings a lot to the table, but
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
that's a big part of it from the personality side.
Yeah. And the person that can reflect back on us, some of the things we either won't see or can't see. And I think that's one of the things that happens with business partnerships. And I've seen a lot of them be very, I was sitting with a client one day in his office, and he had a 3 hour, a 3 hour meeting with his other two partners.
Hmm.
And you could tell it was very contentious.
Yeah.
And what was happening and these guys had been friends for like 20 some odd years. So,
Hmm.
they all respected each other. They all loved each other as brothers, and they understood where they were at. And they all had the best interest of the team at heart. They just had different opinions. I think we need somebody like that sometimes, just to clash with, and sometimes just to give us that feedback that we need to hear from somebody that we know has our best interests at heart. And I think that's the big part of it. It's not just going out and being a jerk. It's, I know this person is doing this because they care. It's the Sean Whalen, Lion's Not Sheep. He's like, I
Yep.
call up my friends because I care about them.
Right. Yes. Yes. Very, very much so. And I say about Josh, man, like if there's a brick wall and we had to get to the other side of the brick wall, I would run face first into it. He would stand next to me and open the door that was there the whole time and say, dude, why don't we go through this?
Yeah.
Right. Like that's the difference between us. And so we do, there are definitely times where we have debate, but we talk all the time about walking the walk. Like part of the thing that we come in and consult and work with companies on is building the right culture. So that means that we have to be able to have healthy conflict in our business.
Yeah.
We have to be able to have a conversation. And so me and him can have our words and we can talk. And at the end of it, we're always brothers and we're always going to continue to build this thing the right way. And so no matter what we decide to do, that's the important part of it. And I think sometimes people lose sight of what the main objective is and ego gets involved, right?
Mhm.
And so me and him do a really, really good job of keeping ego out of it and being able to just say, these are the facts. Like let's look at facts, not opinions. And
Mhm.
and that's the way it is.
Yeah. Yeah. I love who is it? Ben Shapiro has a little thing on his computer that says facts don't care about your feelings.
Correct.
Well, it's like,
100%.
yeah. Yeah.
100%.
Take a look at the data, and I'm a data is delightful kind of guy, where it's like I want to see what the result is. I want to see kind of what's going on. Yeah. Yeah.
And
Because
there's a leash to it too, right? Like he has to give me, because I'm the creative one. I'm the guy that's like,
you're the
hey,
visionary.
yeah, like I call him and I'm like, dude, guess what we're gonna do? Like, hey, we're gonna get a purple elephant and it's gonna be here, and this is how we're gonna do it. And he's like, great, how do you want me to get that done? I'm like, I don't care, but we need a purple elephant. Like,
Yeah.
let's figure this out. Call me when you have it done. And
Uh,
so there's definitely that piece of it, but the reminder of the data points and the reminder of the facts, right? That's the key to it all, is that he grounds me on that. Like I say in my presentation, I said it on stage multiple times. If there's an Excel spreadsheet attached to an email, there's a 90% chance that I don't even read it. I just forward it to him.
yep.
Or I wait for him to come to me with what his summation is of what that email said.
Yep.
Because it's just not my thing. That's not
Yeah.
my thing. That's his thing. So it's like I don't even put myself in there.
I write emails differently if I'm talking to a visionary versus an implementer. If it's an implementer, there's, because I'm a visionary, but I can do implementer when I have to. And so the implementer is a longer email with a bunch of data in it. The visionary ones are what I call ADHD mode. And that's just like one sentence. It's almost bullet points. Just here's what
Yes.
you need to know.
Yep.
That's it.
Yep. That's exactly.
And
I
it
don't. I
works.
don't care. I don't care about the other stuff. Just tell me what the end result is. Tell me what you need from me. Like
Yeah.
I hate meetings. I'm always like people. My team knows I'm getting ready to leave the meeting when I say, okay, action items, because
Yep.
that means I'm done with all this discussion, all this stuff. I'm like, okay, action items. What do you need from me?
Yep.
What?
Yep.
That's it. Other than that, don't care.
Yeah. I'm the same way too. It's like, I see the vision. I know generally what has to happen to make it work.
Correct.
I am in my zone of genius when I can allow somebody else to just say, okay, figure out the different steps between point A and point B.
Yep, that's how I am. Yeah, like I'll lay a project out. This is what I want the end result to look like. Here are the constraints that we have, whether it's financial, budgets, whatever it is. Here are the
Mhm.
constraints. Come back to me when you guys have an action plan, and then tell me what steps I'm specifically involved in.
Mhm.
Other than that, I don't care. I don't.
Yeah.
I trust you. I brought you here because I trust you. I brought you here because you're good at what you do. You don't
Mhm.
need me. We don't buy dogs and bark for them. That is one of our number one rules in our business. Our
Love
team
that.
knows that. If we hire, whether it's a 1099 or a independent contract, whatever we bring onto our team,
Uh-huh.
our number one rule is we do not hire dogs and bark for them. Like,
Oh,
let them do their thing.
I'm going to use that if you don't mind, because that's a
Yeah,
beautiful
absolutely.
thing. It's Steve Jobs said that, where he said, "Don't hire an expert and tell them how to do their job." I like your version
Correct.
better. don't buy a dog and bark for him.
Yeah, it
You know?
makes no sense. It makes no sense.
Well, you hired that expert for a reason. Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. So we're getting towards the end of things, and I do have one question that I ask everyone. This is sort of my give
Mhm.
back to the audience, and that is, what
Yeah.
is one book or podcast that has had a major impact on your life?
hmm Yeah, from a book standpoint, I'm gonna double dip on you, man. I'm gonna double dip because
Sure.
I got two. From a book standpoint, the first one is Meditations, Marcus Aurelius.
Oh, great. Yeah.
Just a perspective piece, man. Like it's so important for entrepreneurs. It's so important to be
Mhm.
able to maintain perspective through things.
Yeah.
Um,
Stoicism.
and yeah, it's
Stoicism changed
stoicism,
my
right?
life. Yeah.
Yeah, it does. And I think for anybody that's looking for an entry point into personal development, stuff like that, stoicism is the way to go
Yeah.
because it's easy to digest and you can get deep with it, but it's easy. The principles are easy to digest. So that's the first book that changed my life. The second one is As a Man Thinketh. So it's a
Mhm.
very small, short essay, but it's profound. And
Okay.
and it's if anybody that's read Think and Grow Rich, think
Yeah.
that, but a little bit more philosophical, like same concepts.
Yeah.
But it's about the power of our thoughts and the power of you can either be a prisoner in your own mind, or it can be your place of solace and your place of peace. And I think for entrepreneurs, when the world is as crazy as it is for us and chaotic, we need to have a place of peace.
Yes.
And so I think, it has to be your mind. You got to be able to go inward and be comfortable with the voice in your head.
Mhm.
And you're in control of that. So those are the two books from a podcast standpoint. I'm a huge fan of Diary of a CEO,
Hmm.
Stephen Bartlett.
Okay.
Big fan of that. I like that he gets deep with people and really gets into some of the underlying things, because I think successful people are so interesting,
Yeah.
just across the board.
Uh,
And then second podcast would probably be, this is when I first started getting into business, was The Unmistakable Creative.
hmm.
And that's a phenomenal podcast as well. I really listened to that a lot when I first started, where just highlighting, people and people that have built businesses, people have done different things, and then diving into what makes them unique, what makes them unmistakably creative.
Mm.
And I think that's a really cool concept as well.
Interesting. Well, David, thank you so much for bringing so much energy here, so much wisdom to this podcast. I really appreciate you having you on today, man.
Thank you, brother. Thanks for having me, and thanks for doing what you do, man. We need it. Entrepreneurs, we a lot of times we feel alone.
Yes.
So it's good to have voices like this and you, and bringing other people together that remind you, hey, man, there's other people in this war with you.
Yeah. This is the new normal. This is actually okay. Everything's fine. It's going to work out. Here's some stories to show you that it's going to work. So thank you
Yes,
so
sir.
much.
Thank you.
Thanks again for joining us on the Hustle and Grind podcast. If you'd like to learn more about Coach Kitch, check out the links in the description.